homage to your buddy over your shoulder.
I've had more conversations around that picture being behind me.
I believe it.
Than anything. Like cool stories. People that like worked with him and or met him, and
we gotta do a whole David Bowie segment. I mean,
yeah.
I first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
So good to see you. Thank you for being here. This is awesome having you here this morning. Of course, we miss Jackye. Of course.
Yes.
I'm required by contract to say that.
Yes.
We do miss her. But I mean, I don't know if everybody heard what with the music going on. That picture over your shoulder, the amount of people who comment on that, isn't it crazy?
It's crazy, and as you know, because we're on video every day with each other, I moved my office around because I need to get a switch of scenery, so I move where my desk is and whatnot. But sometimes I leave the stuff hanging on the walls, and sometimes I have to move it around. And usually, if I can make it work, that's a picture I get moved to put behind.
You move David with you. I feel like every time you move around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are like, most people know who it is. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Haven't had a couple that don't.
Most people know who it is. When we hit a certain age demographic and below, they often don't. But then when I tell them, oh yeah. But in the last 2 weeks alone, I had like two of the best stories off of that picture, talking to two different people, both of a similar age demographic. And one guy told me this was a candidate actually, and he latched onto it, and we went down this path of his telling me his brother-in-law back in the day was like Bowie's like one of his like tour managers or something for years. So I was like,
oh my gosh.
And then another guy, a client, told me that when he ran the client, when he ran some hotels in the south of France years ago, that David and Iman were regulars, and they were lovely people. And I said,
I believe it.
I knew they were. Of course they were. And I was like all sweaty just hearing the story.
I absolutely believe that they were lovely people.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, and Iman is still with us, but like that, just traveling together, like totally believe that. It's fascinating, that picture. I think part of it is just because it's a cool print of him as well, the way it's done. So conversation piece. This one behind me over here, people are always like, oh, that's, you got Cyclops up from X-Men. And I'm like, look, I don't hate Cyclops. I'm good with him. But that's Racer X from Speed Racer, which is also a demographic of a certain age group that would know who Speed Racer is. Mm-hmm. All my Speed Racer peeps, and I know you can't see it. I'm going to mess up my whole camera if I do this, but like I've got both of them up there, Speed Racer and Racer X. Now I'll never get this camera back where it's supposed to be, and I'm going to be in trouble. Oh gosh.
Put a little lower so we're more even.
Yes, I'm going to, let me shimmy myself. This whole like left right thing, I can't do it with the camera. I'm always off every time I try to do it. Anyway, those like the people who know who Speed Racer is, they're like, oh my gosh, and they tell like stories of how they came home from school and put it on right away, and I couldn't wait to watch it. Or early in the morning before I went to school, it was on like UHF channel 48 or something like that, right? And you're like, yep,
channel 18 by us. Yep.
Yeah. Like you had to, and I'm like, yep, that's my people. And then I've got other people who are like, oh, just that's it. They just say, oh, feel badly for me. I get it. All right, fine.
Yep.
It is, we're talking about quiet vacationing, and I want to make sure, right? I've told people, I know, hence the sunglasses. I have told people, and I think I actually finally used the word in print this morning. when posting for us talking today, and that Jackie's been away on sabbatical, and I don't want people to think that she's been, first of all, vacationing for weeks, because her her employer might feel some sort of way about that. That's not what I mean for people to think. But she just took some time off, and so we'll be back next week. But this, because we can't help ourselves, we have another term: quiet vacationing. I mean, by the way, those who follow me, I did post the article from Inc. yesterday. I think it was yesterday, about quiet vacationing. It was this week, and I just can't stand it.
When we talked about discussing this topic, right? Because you were like, this was, earlier this week. Have you seen this? I'm like, yes, you can't escape it, because all of a sudden it was every other headline. And so last night, as I was doing my typical lounging on the couch, going down rabbit holes on my iPad, and I actually read.
And that is not made up. That is not made up.
That is not made up. I read an article that came out yesterday on a home decor site about quiet vacationing. And
What?
This is the new trend. And they were trying so hard to wrap it into what their site is about, which is decorations and, gutting your bathroom and, redoing it and whatever. They were trying so hard to squeeze in this new buzzword
my gosh.
that they wrote an article about it and wrapped it into it's people that want to, cocoon in their house. And so they're quiet vacationing when they're working from home. And I was like, that's, we come out with these phrases, quiet this, quiet that, quiet whatever. And they have the shelf life now of, a week, if that.
Yep.
Because a week from now, quiet vacationing will be gone, and we'll have.
Why do you think we're quieting everything? Like, why is this the way that we're going?
I think it's and I can't remember which was who was the first quiet quitting, maybe.
Quiet quitting, I think, probably was the first one.
I think it's, which gets at the underlying concept of it as we peel apart what the concept of it means. But it's this, there's almost this worker revolt aspect to a lot of the quiet stuff, right? And it's a way of capturing that and saying the workers are revolting. They're not going to put up with your crap anymore. So they're going to do everything quietly. So there's kind of this worker revolt aspect, but then it also turns into, but why are they being quiet about whatever is, the lack of trust in the workplace. So it's just, we are so buffeted by this rapid, so accelerated change in how we work and the workplace and what it means to be at work. And it's been so, we were ramping to things, and then COVID put us over the edge, right? Of just and so I think we're like these little, balls in the video ping pong game type of thing, right?
Yes.
What's the word? Why can't I think of what it is?
What, Pong? Is that what you think we
No,
are?
what's the oh God. Pinball.
I mean,
we're like balls in a pinball machine.
Listen,
right?
everybody, this is how you know we've known each other forever. She's just doing this, and I know
you could see the pinball machine.
This means pinball. I forgot to ask you, what are you drinking out of today? Is that anything in particular?
No, it's an old where I used to work, but it's it's a good Yeti, so it keeps the coffee hot.
Nice.
Because a regular mug, the heat is not going to last for an hour.
No, and I have mine in one as well. But I have to, let me just do, before we jump back into this, it's because Father's Day, and this is a former Father's Day gift from the Three Cherubs.
Oh, that's
One of these
adorable.
photo mugs. If Frankie is watching this right now, I will be beaten severely. But I mean, look at them. They look nothing like that now. I read that article about quiet vacationing as well. And part of the frustration for me is even within the article itself, it says like less than 10% or something like that, right, are doing this. And if they do it, it's up to 3 days a year where they basically, just to give it some definition, the premise behind this quiet vacationing is I'm not formally putting in for PTO for a particular day. I'm going wherever it is that I'm going to go. I'm logging in from there. I may actually even do some work, but I'm kind of doing so with my feet in the pool or in the ocean or in the lake or whatever's happening, and having a Mai Tai and just being kind of off, but I'm not putting in for it.
Yeah.
And the fascinating thing to me about this is there's so much to talk about. But one of the things that was so fascinating to me is from a percentage standpoint, whoever did this research, I don't know. But from a percentage standpoint, the highest percentage of people who have done this out of that small percentage, the highest percentage of people who've done this end the year with PTO days in their bank that they didn't use.
Right.
And you're like, well, why wouldn't you just put in for the PTO if you have it? It's not like I ran out of days and I'm doing this quiet vacation.
Right.
So there's got to be something else at play, right? For me not to use the days that I have earned or accrued, however your system does it.
Well, and looking at who's here. Hi, friends. We've got Nikki, we've got Yvette. I like Yvette's comment. It's a passive aggressive revolt. Mm-hmm. And I think that sums it up.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, but part of it for me is, who is it pissing off? Like, if it's really a revolt and you're like, I'll show them.
But they won't know because I'm being quiet about it.
Right. I'll show them. I'm going to put my feet in, Lake Erie, but I'll have my laptop on my. Have you all seen that GIF where the lady is in the ocean with her laptop? She's like halfway in the ocean and she's got her laptop up and she's answering emails while she's like up to her, beyond her waist, like up to her stomach in ocean water. And it's a legit person who's in the ocean. It's not staged. It's a legit thing that someone was like videoed from the beach. And I'm like, who are we hurting when we do that? Right. Do you really think your manager is in the office going, oh, they better not be in the ocean with this laptop? I mean, why are we doing this to ourselves? Just take the day off.
I think because we know this exists, right? There's also this this tendency still of, a lot of companies, and especially small, mid-sized companies, right? Who are perhaps not as competitive with the PTO time that they offer.
Right.
Because we'll run into fairly regularly, I'll run into, there are places that will give a week of PTO after a year type of thing, right? So this kind of stuff still exists where people don't get what we would consider like a reasonable amount of PTO time.
Right.
And so I think that now chances are that's the kind of situation where you're also not working remotely. You're probably all sitting in an office, right? Anyway, so you can't. It's hard to do this, but I think in some situations there might be maybe I got 2 weeks of vacation of PTO. Maybe I accrued it right away, and I've been able to tap in, because there's also places where maybe I get a decent amount, but I can't tap into it right away.
Yeah.
And so, there's this thought of, well, nobody needs time off in their first 3 to 6 months, whatever. Oh my God, that's sometimes when you need the most time off.
Yes, right.
So I think in some cases they don't give me enough, or I had to use it because it was a non-protected leave sort of thing or
Yep.
whatever, or maybe it was a protected leave, but I had to use PTO, right? My policy is to use that PTO simultaneously, right? I had to use it all up because my child, had an illness and I was out for a week, and so I burned it on that.
Yep.
And dang it, now I need a day or two off.
And there's so much there when it comes to this revolt perspective, because if you are an employer, and you and I both, and I'm sure other people who are listening now, right? Good morning again to everybody. Like, we have dealt with managers, directors, VPs, C-suite, and business owners. I'm calling them all out. We have dealt with people at those various levels who have said, this is why I don't want to hire someone who has kids.
Right.
A woman who has kids, she's going to call out. She's got to leave early to go pick up the kid from school. So this is why I don't want to. And so she needed to take time off. She's only been here 5 weeks, already took 2 days because a kid was sick, and she doesn't have any time, and right? Like all of that. And so I'm like, okay, well, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? The alternative is what? You either want to hire guys or women who have no plans on
also have kids, by the way.
Yeah. But they won't take off. The guys won't take off, right? That's a woman's thing to do, right? We know we're still dealing with that.
Yep.
Everybody who thinks everybody's woke, I want to tell you, by the way, it's not.
They are not.
It's not just the 70-year-old dudes. I just want to make sure everybody knows this. These are conversations I have with 29-year-olds, everybody. So just know it's still happening, right? This idea of like, okay, so now you set up a punitive relationship with this new employee who's been there 5 weeks. You're pissed at them because they took 2 days off to take care of a sick kid. Now you got attitude with them. Well, it's no wonder they're going to quiet vacation now. Because they're afraid of what it looks like if they put a request in for time off. Right? I mean, it's a lot of attitude.
Yeah. And even absent the had to take off for a sick kid or whatever, there is still a lot of thinking as well from all those same people. And I'm going to toss HR people in there too, because you left them out. There's
directors of HR, absolutely.
There's still a lot of thinking of, well, just because we give someone, it's less so around, if you have a separate pots, right? If you've got vacation and sick, it's less so around that. But in how people think of quote vacation. But if you've got one pot and it's PTO, there's still this thought process of, well, just because they have it, they shouldn't use it all. If you have a carryover thing, right? Because you see this a lot with, well, we give them whatever, a week of sick time for the year, whatever. Well, somebody has something big, that's gone in a hot minute. But there's this, well, she used all her sick leave.
Totally indignant. How could she
use it? Of course she's going to use it. That's what it's there for. You gave it to her. It's part of her package.
Yeah. I remember, I mean, look, this is both, by the way, hi, Rachel. She's giving you,
Rachel. Ooh, and Josh.
Great point shout out. I want to make sure you saw that. And Lord help us. Josh is coming to your neck of the woods. So
I know.
Lock the doors.
I'm a little way up the I-10, so I can
set the ring, scan in a picture of him so Ring knows when he's there. So but honestly, I know people are commenting, Josh is right. Like, if you have the time, if you've been given the time, why do you then make it, attitude oriented when somebody uses that time. I remember years ago, even lots of benefits are this way. I got to tell you, being in hospitality early on, right? So I did retail and then went into hospitality, and at the restaurant, if you one of the perks for certain levels of people, right, in-house trainers is who I'm thinking of first. If you trained someone as part of your lunch shift or dinner shift, right? If you were a trainer at the end of your shift, you got one of the things that you also got was a meal, like have lunch on us, have dinner on us before you go home. Like, you got to use it that day, but, just eat, because we want to thank you for doing that extra bit of work by training someone. I mean, I would have GMs at the restaurant dissuade people who were training from using the meal because it would count against their cost of goods because they had to comp this meal. And I'm like, buddy, we told them this is a perk of they're helping us out by training someone, and now you're making them feel badly for using it. And literally would have GM say to someone, that comes out of my potential bonus this quarter because of that. And you're like, what? What?
Yeah.
But we do this crap. We make people feel badly for the things that we offer to them.
Well, and it also, that is a point that is so important because it talks about how we organizationally look at these things and how they're all interconnected. When you have a incentive / bonus structure, which again is usually going to be for a certain level and up, right?
Yep.
And the factors that go into that are the types of things that are going to be counterintuitive to what you say your values are, how you operate, what you promise to your employees. And so in that particular case, okay, part of my bonus is based on cost of goods and whatnot, right? Oh my God, then I'm gonna pull that chicken wing out of that person's mouth and put it back on the platter. But it's so we're so then it becomes, well, I am going to deny someone's time off.
I'm sorry, that visual is awesome. Pulling the chicken wing straight out of
their mouth, wipe it off, put it back on the buffet.
Oh, gosh.
But I am going to deny someone's PTO because I know if Sally Sue is off, I've got to fill Sally Sue's shift with somebody else, and I'm short-staffed. So whoever I fill that shift with is going to put me into overtime. And part of my bonus, I can't. Yeah. I've got to keep my overtime and my labor costs here, and then it's carved out even more into overtime costs, and I'm going to get dinged on that, and I'm not going to potentially make this part of my bonus. And so we build these labyrinths of convoluted crap that are in direct conflict from how we're operating and then what we're telling people and this culture and values and what we're trying to create. And it's no wonder that we keep doing some of these things.
Yeah, and it's such a great point because I think so coming even back to like the chicken wing out of your mouth and the meal example, right? Because it's just a simple example. I went back to, this is where HR, quite honestly, ought to be very specific in the way in which we understand the finance of the way in which the business is looked at, the P&L, even coming into the weeds around cost of labor, cost of goods. Like we've got to get in the weeds of some of that.
Yeah.
Let me do the offset. Let me propose to finance and to leadership the offset of, in this quarter, Jim had this much training go on, and this portion of comps represents the training. I'm going to carve that out from his numbers for which he's going to get potentially bonused on.
Yep.
Let me carve that out because that's a cost of doing business that corporate has said is a perk. That can't be against Jim because that's a corporate perk that we've given. It's not against Jim. I understand there's real cost. I'm not taking away from that, but it is connected to a service that's been provided to the organization. We could not train all the people that need to be trained without the help of the staff that are already there. That's why we put this benefit into place as one of the benefits, right? So HR sitting down and being able to say, let's have a practical conversation and approach to how we can handle this. And here are the reasons why. It's a solvable thing. Right. But if HR just says things like we do, which is, I'm sorry, that's the policy.
Yeah.
Then the GM is irritated with us. The employee is irritated with us because we've not helped them not to feel badly, right? Because the GM is saying you're taking money out of my kids' mouths that I can't get now because you're having this chicken wing. Like that kind of stuff goes on at the ground level. And again, coming back to this quiet vacationing, it's absolutely for some organizations all about sort of the relational equity that's happening.
Yes.
I'm going to be irritated with you. You're going to be irritated with me because of this. So I'm just not going to tell you that I'm on vacation for the day or what have you. I'm just going to log in because you're not going to know the difference anyway.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we wind up doing.
Yeah. And one of I think it might have been in that Inc. article or in one of the, again, 55 others I read as we've latched onto this term in the last 7 days, where there's talk about the different gradations of quiet vacationing, right? It's all right, I'm going out to the lake for the day and not saying, or it's, maybe I'm just hanging in my backyard with my feet up on the hammock because it's nice out today. And so there's the aspect as well of people using, the mouse jig. So this obviously is remote workers, right? But people using the mouse jigglers,
yes,
and that sort of thing. I wouldn't even know how to hook up a mouse jiggler if you asked me to, probably.
Honestly, I'd be terrified to Google search mouse jiggler as to what comes up.
I do know someone who shall remain nameless, who's not on here, but I know someone who is quite an expert and has gone through to find the perfect mouse jiggler. But
because there are jigglers that are other things. I just want to make sure.
Yes, there are.
Please make sure you're specific.
This is a proper word.
Mouse jiggler. Do not Google search jiggler. You'll be sorry.
But she went that route, and she's worked from home forever. I mean, even pre-COVID, this was not a COVID thing. But worked for one organization where it truly was, and she was working all day. But sometimes you just need to. Oh my God, I need to. Let me get up, let me go walk around the yard, whatever, right? I got to get up, get away, whatever. And she worked for an organization which was all about, they were one step short of, I feel like, putting a camera on everybody's desk.
Oh my gosh.
They were like one step short of that. So they were like totally tuned into what your like team status was and all this kind of jazz. And they had it set up in such a way where it was, if you're inactive, it would automatically, gray you out, whatever. Instead of you kind of setting your own status, it would kind of do if you're not keystroking, it's going to make it look like you're not there.
Yes.
So, and this is so sad. And so she had taken a moment one day, and was just like, oh my God, I've got to get away and go sit in a chair for a minute because it was chaotic. And her manager, messaged her, where are you? Are you working? I see you're not, you're on gray status, whatever. Gosh. And she was like, and she like responded right away because the message came up, but she was like, I'm vegging for a few minutes here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, your status makes it look like you're not available. Well, it's because they set it up automatically to do that. Right. So that was when she went down the path of, you know what? I'm getting a dang mouse jiggler.
Yeah.
so that I can get up and go to the to the point where even going to the bathroom.
That's what I was going to say. Like, it's not like you're talking about so much time that it's different than going to the bathroom, right? Like, so are we messaging people when it's like 3 minutes of being in the restroom? Like, first of all, I'm all about like get up, move around. So you know, obviously for those that don't know, Robin and I work together at Humoriso, and you know, like in the Vero Beach office is one example. We've got work areas. There's some that you can stand at, some that you can sit at, so that even within the office, like people will move from sitting for a while to standing for a while, like just mix things up. Some face a window, some are not by a window. Some like they move stuff, you know, to move around because we're people, right? We want to get up, move around, that kind of stuff. But there's someone here at the office who at lunch, it's because, you know, we're in Florida and it's usually decent weather, walks.
Yeah.
Just walks for like 10 minutes during lunch break and just, we're not talking about miles, just gets outside in the sun. There's sidewalk here. It's safe, you know, walking down for a little bit. She might get on the phone. She might just walk, whatever.
Yep.
I'm not like, hey, your status, where are you?
Right.
Why aren't you answering the phone? Like if we're that over the top, something's wrong with your organization as a whole, if that's really what you're worried about, right?
And there's ways that becomes an organizational issue that speaks to the design of the flow of work. That is not an individual's. I'm Sally, the call center person, right? And maybe I'm working at home, maybe I'm in an office, whatever.
Yes.
There are parameters around. Yes, you need to be there, answer your phone, whatever. Yeah. But organizationally, there those people, you know, to Rachel's point as well. Yeah. People need breaks. People, you know, restroom breaks.
Yes.
Lunch breaks, whatever it might be. Build that into your operation so that, you know, oh my gosh, I've got to go to the bathroom. Let me finish this call. And I put it on a whatever. It's forwarded to the next line that rings in, or, you know, incoming calls, however that works. I mean, there's ways to manage that.
Listen, instead
of forcing people to sit there.
You and I know. Now I'm just going to name it. I'm so sorry, but I'm just going to name it. You and I both know that we don't have, and I'm outing both of our medical records, we're not submitting ADA accommodations for restroom breaks. We're not. You and I are not doing that.
No,
but
I need them.
But we crossed some age at some point where our bodies were like, buddy, you can't wait. You got to go now.
Like right now.
Like right now. It's like, you know, we've been on calls where it's like, hey, how's everybody doing? Great to see you. I'll be back in 2 minutes. I gotta go. Like right now, I gotta go. And it's, I mean, and here we are. And I know in some organizations, because we get to work with lots of organizations where it's like, oh, it seems like that's becoming a problem. Could you go visit your physician, please? And here's a form. Can you, so that we know that when we see your status go gray in Teams, we've already got a note on file about the accommodation you need for a restroom break. Listen, we aren't in the bathroom for a half an hour. When I tell you I got to go, I got to go. I'm not hanging out in there, right? It's like, that's how over the top some organizations have become. So Rachel, right? Absolutely. Like absolutely. We get breaks. You're allowed to do that. I had an argument with a business owner who was like, I don't have to give anybody a break, only the 16 and 17-year-olds that work here because that's required by law. And I was like, okay, where'd you go to lunch today? Oh, John, I went to, it was so good. I'm like, amazing. Did you go there? Oh yeah. Isn't that a break? What are you trying to tell me here? And by the way, I guarantee you were gone longer than an hour because knowing this particular person, he was like, yeah, but it's different for me. Is it? That's awesome. Now let's have a caste system in the organization as to whose breaks really, really matter because it's different for them versus everybody else, right?
I had at one of one of my casinos I worked at, obviously there are certain positions where a person cannot just get up, put themselves out of status and go, right? So a security guard in a casino, right? Think of a police officer, think of a whatever, right? But our security guards, and it was mandated by the state, X number of people on each floor and X number of people at an entrance and this, that, and the other thing. And we had floaters during the shift that were specifically not assigned a station during the day, but they were there to go and relieve. That was their role, right? Okay, now you're going to go relieve Bob at 11 and then relieve Susie at 11:30. And that was all they did, was so that these people could get their breaks and whatnot. Well, one day, I forget what happened. Some chaos, right? Something was going on. So it was all hands on deck, right? All the
at the casino. Hold on, let me try to imagine that. Right? Okay, yeah.
In the middle of the day, this was even. It wasn't even a weekend this was like a Tuesday afternoon or something. Some kind of chaos, and all the floaters, plus the supervisor, plus the director of security, everybody was like all hands on deck, like on the gaming floor doing something. And so we had a security guard who often did the entrance to the gaming floor. And usually there were two people there, but again, this all hands on deck. We could get by with one, but usually we had two. But he was the only one there, and he was there for the longest time because everybody was taking care of this stuff. And he needed to go to the bathroom desperately.
Yeah.
And they had missed his break and whatever, and he couldn't leave. And so he had his little radio, and he's like radioing, I need to be, and nobody could believe him. And so somebody like called me, and because we were relatively close to where he was, somebody called me, like, what am I going to do? Right. But they're like, can you go talk to Mr. Jim? Can you go talk to Mr. Jim and tell him that we'll get there as soon as we can? Because we keep telling him that on the radio, but he keeps calling. So I had to go tell this, because it's not like I could stand there and, I wasn't.
I bet you could.
Be a security guard. But I had to go tell this poor little man, they'll be here when they can. And it was horrible. And he ended up,
oh my gosh,
having an accident.
Oh, Mr. Jim.
It was horrible. It was horrible.
It is terrible.
And it was not, and in this particular case, it was one of those really weird, it really couldn't be helped, because we really had a pretty good system to make sure that there were enough folks to like relieve people in this. It was just this day of everything
awful
hit at once. But you think about that, and that was, a unique, weird little whatever, but there's probably lots of places where that kind of stuff happens. And nope, you can't leave. You're the fry cook at, fast food restaurant, and the line's out the door and the drive-thru's packed, and nope, I don't care if it's your break. You're not getting it.
You're not getting it. Yes.
Keep working, right? But I need to go to the bathroom. Nope, keep those fries going in the basket.
And honestly, one of the things, and Tanner, thank you so much, right? I'm trying to, by the way, keep up with comments. I see there's ton. The organizations need to shift to manage the outcome and not manage the process. I think if more organizations took this mindset, it would make a critical change to the workplace. Thank you for sharing that. You talk about the fast food example, and there's so many times where I have had to say to supervisors and managers, you are going to have a biting conversation back and forth with someone who needs a break, and you're telling them no.
Yeah.
That person is absolutely focused on the fact that they're going to wet their pants if you don't let them do it. So they're not even 100% present in getting the drive-through orders right and all that. Right. Good stuff. Your time is best spent saying, go, take the couple minutes, hurry up, run to the restroom. I got you. We're going to catch up, because when that person comes back, they're going to be like, thank you so much. Awesome. Okay. And now they can focus back in on what has to get done. Yeah. I know it doesn't feel like it at the moment, right? At the moment, you're like, we can't. We have to, because we're creating distraction.
And that also gets back to, again, that manager, that restaurant GM, whatever. And this is especially going to be a change, thinking of a large organization, certainly, but thinking in the back of their head of what metrics they're getting called on the carpet for, because, which is whatever, 2 minutes and 57 seconds should be your average time to fill a ticket type of thing. And that's what they're thinking. Oh, well, if I let Susie go to the bathroom, then, oh my gosh, our ticket time is going to go from 250, an average of 257 to 333, and I'm going to get in trouble.
And that's where, again, I think HR has to go back to the leadership, has to be a part of leadership and say, if 257 is so thin, there's really no margin,
no wiggle room,
wiggle room at all. 257, and we can't allow someone to take a bio break without messing up that 257.
Yeah,
and that 257 can't be the standard, because human beings have to take a break. They have to go to the bathroom at the very least.
Right.
And now going larger, because I know this isn't everyone's experience, when we talk about things like quiet vacationing or even just taking PTO, and I love, and I'm going to try to find this. Nikki said, don't even, hi, Nikki.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on unlimited PTO as a recruiting effort versus how it's then managed once the employee's on board, right? You can take all the time off you need. We don't care. It's unlimited, blah, blah, but we care. You take it, we're going to feel some sort of way.
Yep.
Right. And we're tracking it, and we're this and we're that. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I thought it was okay. And it's right. The values of the organization, to your point earlier, like come through. But I like thinking about the fact that if your organization can't handle, without it being punitive, someone taking time that they've earned or accrued, then why are you even offering it?
Right.
If it's going to become leverage for feeling some sort of negative way about someone, why are you doing it?
Right.
Right? Because you're just setting yourself up to be mad at someone.
Yep.
When you put out unlimited PTO, we had a client, unlimited PTO, and someone got hired. And I want to say it was 6 weeks, maybe close to 6 weeks after that they had started, that they had put in for 3.5 weeks off to go to Europe.
Which they had probably bought the tickets for 10 months prior,
And all of a sudden, the company is calling saying, we're going to have to part ways with this person. Why? What happened already? They haven't been there that long. No, it's been almost a month and a half, but they put in for 3.5 weeks. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, John, they just started. I mean, we don't have people who've been here 10 years taking 3.5 weeks. Well, first of all, I can't speak to the people who've been there 10 years, but I have the offer letter. It says unlimited PTO.
Right.
Did you not mean that? What did you mean when you said unlimited? Because I know when you go to some restaurant and there's free refills, you're filling up your pockets, your cups, and everything else.
Unlimited, crab legs, baby.
Right? Look at Red Lobster.
Right.
The all you can eat shrimp. They couldn't really mean what they advertised because it was costing them a fortune, $1 million in the hole just because of shrimp. Imagine that one. Lay in bed at night thinking about that. But you know what I mean? Like if it's not really what we're offering, then you're going to force people into doing things like quiet vacationing and other stuff like that. Right. And the more examples we're going to have about this, the more, yes, George is right. It's somewhat unlimited. That's not what it says on the offer letter, but that's what we really meant. I'm
going to judge where you're going and how you're spending that time to determine if that's a trip that's worthy of, right?
Right. And how is that happening? You and I, my gosh, the managers who are stalking their employees on Facebook and Instagram, just to see where they're going and what they're doing. And dude, if you have time during the workday to be watching those things, searching for that stuff online. Why can't you give this person 2 minutes to go use the restroom? Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You just took 5 minutes scoping everything out on Instagram, right? It's crazy.
Well, it's yes, there's the managers that stalk, but more often than not, it's a coworker.
You're right about that.
Right. And Trixie cannot get along with Babs. And so she's watching everything that's going on, and then comes into HR, right? You know my names, right?
I mean, it's because we both, the world that we come from, we know, I mean, half a dozen Trixies and at least a dozen Babs.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, at least.
That's right. So Trixie comes into HR with, used to be on paper, but now it's, at least she's got it on her phone with pictures of, did you see what, look where Babs said she's sick, but look on Facebook, she's at, the lake doing whatever.
Sure, having funnel cake and look at her. First of all, she could still feel badly, and maybe the funnel cake is helping her feel better. You don't know. You don't know. And if they've earned it, by the way, as a reminder to some people, there are states that say it's just calling in or messaging in to say, I'm sick. You don't have to prove anything.
Yeah.
Gone are the days for a lot of states that you and I remember getting on the phone with employees and they were like, oh, John, I feel terrible this morning. Like those calls. And you don't even have to fake anymore. I could just call and say, yeah, I don't feel well today. Won't be in. That's it. Or my kid doesn't feel well today. I'm not coming in. That's all it takes. Yep. So you trying to be like, the inspector.
Yep.
And your minions doing it. It's
I was in my early 20s, really my first, real job. That started me on my illustrious career in the
George added Sally Sue. I just can't. I mean, because he knows our names so well. Anyway.
So I was working at a staffing agency. Thus my entree, a million years ago into this crazy world. And I was sick. I mean, not like, dying, but miserable. Right. And so I called in and I'm sick, and I never took days off. And so I was home, and I lived in this little apartment, and there's a knock on my door in my apartment building. Who the heck? Nobody comes and wanders through. What the heck? What? And I'm like in my, sweats, and I hadn't showered, and because I was like sleeping on the couch and whatever.
Right.
And I go to open my door, and it was my manager.
At your home.
At my home. And she was I won't say it publicly. I don't remember her last name, but I remember her first name too. This is 30 years later.
That's not her. That what you called her was not her legal first name.
But that's not her first name. And it was she had a like a flowering plant was her excuse. Oh, I hope you're feeling better. I'm off for one day, like I had the flu or a cold or something. One day, and she shows up because she was checking on me. Absolutely. And the excuse was this plant to deliver, and I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Well, that's lovely. I'll be back tomorrow. Right. It's not like I'm in the hospital. Wow. Knocked on my door and brought a plant.
Wow. And honestly, this is why, and I'm catching up, everybody. This is why, like Nikki is right. This is why Glassdoor exists, because people will tell these stories, and if you claim you're a people-centric organization and you're not treating people equitably or fairly, right, then, you're either going on LinkedIn or you're going on Glassdoor or you're going to some place. It's funny because you and I both, we have the privilege of working with some really fun organizations. And one of my favorites is Rival Bros out of Philly, and I love them. And guys, if you're listening, just like love you guys so much. Please make K-cups so you can send them to Florida quick. I don't ask for much. I don't
and go
ask.
drink their coffee if you're in the area.
I mean, if you're in Philly, get to Rival Bros. But there's another, or there was another small chain of coffee houses in Philly. I think there were 3, maybe 4, different brand. I'm not even going to say the name. And to your point about the revolt nature of things, the individuals in those locations organized, and they voted to have a union help represent them. The approval of the union by the vote, I should say, for a union by the employees was met the next day with the shutdown of all the stores. The owner said, I'd rather not have the business than to have to deal with what's coming. So I've made the decision, and I'm allowed to close all my stores. And that's what I did. And so now, it was on the news and I found it fascinating. So now the employees, the former employees, right, of this brand, are standing at the locations with bullhorns, shouting out into the world to the owner, we demand that you reopen these stores. And I, I felt badly actually for them. Like I wanted to just kind of come up alongside them and say, I know what you're trying to do. I know that you're bad. You can't demand this.
Right.
It's your words don't have to be met with any level of action. The owner does not have to reopen the stores. If he decided this is no longer a business that I'm interested in and I want to invest my money in making shoes, he's allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so this revolt, right, that you're feeling now cost everybody their jobs, cost business owner whatever this business was making, because we don't know what to do rightly with these feelings of tension to revolt. We've got to get a step back to why is there tension? What's the lack of understanding and communication? I'm not saying I'm pro-union or anti-union. That's not my point. But that it is pointing to something more that we've got to deal with. Just like quiet vacationing is pointing to something more that we have to deal with when it comes to workers.
And every action is, let's coin this cliche, right? But every action is going to have a reaction. Something's going to happen.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know.
Right. Write that one down.
T-shirts, Jamie, T-shirts.
But for all of these quiets that we've had, right?
Yeah.
Quiet resignations, quiet quitting, quiet vacation, whatever.
Everything.
There are repercussions from that, and whether that be the revolt, and that's a perfect example of maybe passive aggressively, to use Yvette's previous term, or subversively or whatever, or maybe very openly, but I'm taking a stand, and I'm taking a principled stand, and good for you. But understand that that's something perhaps that you haven't thought about could come out of that. And in this case, it was the extreme, right? We're just shutting and you're all losing your jobs.
Yep.
And that's fine. Be principled, believe in your right to collectively bargain, go for it. But understand what could happen. And so whoever helped them organize and didn't give them a real picture of what could come out of that. So I feel bad for them.
I do too.
By getting crap advice of what it could look
or and listen, I'm also of the opinion that maybe they did know, I don't know, right? And they just decided they're going to count the cost, and this happened to be worth the risk, and it just didn't work out the way that you had hoped. It just didn't. And I appreciate the injustice, right? Like it feels like I've been wrong. That's why I'm shouting in a bullhorn. I demand you reopen this store. Quite frankly, I'm not saying that I know this. but I don't know what the repercussions are even for that business owner. Like that vein of revenue,
Right.
what was that supporting? I'm not saying that the person is now, destitute. I don't know, but like there's a ripple effect all the way around with this
Right.
kind of stuff.
The
Beyond
neighborhoods that these stores were
absolutely
in that now lost
absolutely
a gathering place and
absolutely
whatnot,
100%. That neighborhood need. We're seeing the effect of this, right? These stressors still, even post COVID, as far as the shutdowns are concerned.
Right, right,
Major cities that are still struggling to
right.
try to rebuild commerce in areas. So you add something like this on top of it, if the tensions are still at that level and you're shutting down businesses, we're trying to reopen businesses. This is the
Yeah,
exact opposite of what we're hoping
yeah.
for, right?
Well, and I think this having a voice and quiet revolting in
Yes.
whatever way is it's not going to go away anytime soon. We're just going to wait to see what the next thing is that they tell us, the next catchphrase we come up with. But it's there's still, yes, there's good jobs reports, but it's certain jobs, right? And so there's still a lot of layoffs in other vast swatches. There's companies relocating and going out of an area, and these things are always going to go on. And so people, the volatility in the employment market, coupled with these changes and or regressions back to perhaps some things that we used to do, is only going to add more tension, because I could see us collectively, right?
Yep.
To the earlier point about unlimited PTO, right? Ooh, that was the thing, whatever, 10 years ago, whoever the first one was that came out with that. And then it became, ooh, right?
Yep.
And I see that we'll dial back on that.
Yep.
As well.
Well,
Because
and
to Nikki's point, what does it mean? Does it
what
even
does it
mean
mean? Right.
what we say it means, right? So I can see us
And
dialing
nobody's
back
using
on
it.
that. And nobody's using it.
You've got quiet vacationing where people are ending their year with PTO in their bank that they didn't use, but they took 3 days of quiet vacationing because they were afraid to use it.
Right.
The same thing is true. The research tells us that people who get unlimited PTO take less time than those who are giving stepped PTO. They've got buckets of PTO that they earn.
Right.
Because there's some messaging happening in the organization that says, don't you dare take that unlimited PTO the way that you think it means. Don't do it. Right. So they wind up taking less. These things aren't solving. Right. I said before we started today, shout out to Sherry Simpson, who texted me and was like, I can't make but first coffee today, but I want to make sure I sent this to you. And she sent me another term that she saw called care washing, which is really,
interesting one.
Very interesting, right? And so the premise behind it is doing these things, companies putting these things into place, not only like unlimited PTO or just these perks, but even like bringing yoga into the business, like opportunities for people to take classes right there on site, or well-being benefits, those kinds of things. But it's really done to sort of cover the fact that the culture is saying, you better work hard, you better work hard, you better work hard. We're giving you these things to help you deal with the fact that we're telling you to work hard, but you better work hard. And so this idea of, care washing is like whitewashing, that kind of deal. That's now another term that's up. So we're just going to keep coming up with these terms for things, right? Because people are trying to know how to categorize it and deal with it.
We need to try to, come up with our own and see if we can get people to adopt it.
Yes. Right. That's what Nikki just said. She said some of us are over here quiet working with our heads down, focusing on results, right? And honestly, it's a great point, because we're starting to see in different ways tension between even coworkers. Right, between employees. It's not just managers and subordinates. It's between coworkers. So I do want to, gosh, this is the fastest hour in show business. Rachel, I know that you, by the way, before somewhere you said, oh yeah, when I said about searching for mouse jiggler, you said to maybe add for computer after that. I just want to tell you very clearly, everyone, mouse jiggler for computer. Don't just do jiggler for computer. You will still be sorry as to what pops up. And that's because of my OnlyFans page. That's how I know these things.
That's
so,
right.
Robin, love you to death. Thank you so much for being here and sharing the time with all of us. Everybody have a great, if you're celebrating this weekend, for any Father's Day activities, happy Father's Day from us at Buffers Coffee. Put your shades on. Let's do some David on the way out, actually, as well. So happy quiet vacationing for those of you that are joining us from the lake today. Bye, y'all.